A very pleasant good evening to you, everyone, once again. Tonight we're going to give you the second in the series of the spring game bird seasons on the west coast of North America, the black brant. By the way, once more, my name is Ted Peck, and a very pleasant welcome to Tides and Trails.
Tides and Trails is presented each week at this time by Sportsman Cigarettes. Sportsman, with the tobacco that's too good to filter. Now, here.
Thank you. And if you will remember, last week we were telling you that there are two types of game birds allowed to be shot on their northward migration up the west coast of North America. The first of these we showed you last week was the lesser snow goose, and tonight we're going to show you the black brant. It's a little sea goose that never goes over land. And without any further ado, let's take you to Tahsis on the west coast of Vancouver Island. And this is in the season early in March, having a sportsman before we take off there on the wild and snowy west coast of Vancouver Island, for those of you who have been there, using outboard motorboats to travel as far as 50, 60 miles down these inlets. We were hoping for the brant to appear as the tide was dropping on the spits, these gravel spits that go way out into the coastal inlets near their mouths. We had along with us big Michael Hobbs, we've met many times before on Tides and Trails, and through the assistance of the local conservation organization, the Tahsis Rod and Gun Club, these films were made possible. Big Mike putting on his chest waders there. We had Vern Greensword with us, various other people whom you'll meet during the film. The brant shooting in this particular area is normally excellent. We had arrived just about a week before the brant appeared. Normally their northward migration goes from the coast of California up to the Yukon Delta on the west coast, up near Alaska there, where they breed. And the shooting is allowed during a very limited period towards the end of February and first 2 or 3 days in March during the last 2 or 3 years, so that you can crop them on their way north. Very seldom does anyone get a chance at brant on their way south. The season normally opens in December. It's all open sea shooting. You shoot right over salt water. And the bird is not fishy. What the bird feeds on is eelgrass almost exclusively. The odd one of them might get into an eelgrass bed where the herring, the Pacific Coast herring, has been spawning, and inasmuch as that the spawn attaches itself to the eelgrass, the odd bird sometimes is fishy, but 99% of the black brant are excellent table birds as well as good sport for the shotgun, and allows the hunters an exceptionally long season on the coast of BC. And this is the positive last game bird that's allowed to be shot in North America on its way north. The season usually closes between March the 2nd and March the 5th. Sometimes a lot of work is engaged in digging the pits for the brant. In this case, the gravel fills itself in on every tide. So you see Uncle Stumbly and crew here busily heaving out the wet gravel, being watched by the Labrador dogs and so on, and setting out decoys in preparation for a brant shoot. Most of the decoys are handmade out of wood and require an awful lot of diligence and certainly patience during the winter months that the boys construct them. We're in Greensword there giving shouting instructions and laying the decoy patterns. During the last 2 years, the British Columbia Fish and Game Branch has allowed the use of outboard motors for setting decoys and picking up cripples in difficult areas, but you may not hunt from a motorboat under any circumstances while the motor is in use. The pit has to be quite large in this case because there was quite a large number of individuals shooting. You let the brant come right in close over your decoys and you call them. We'll stumble up to his derriere there in the very cold North Pacific Ocean. But you make a little chuckling noise like a ring you'll meet later on in these films are certainly well versed in the calling of the black brant. There's another species of brant on the east coast called the American brant, but does not frequent the Pacific coast. This fellow is Mr. Dowding, who is in the Tahsis Rod and Gun Club, and a very fine host he was on this particular trip. A good conservation organization, just as the Sportsman cigarette people sponsor conservation all over Canada. The Tahsis Rod and Gun's motto is safety first, always. And both the cameraman, Bill Dennett, and myself were made honorary members of the Tahsis Rod and Gun Club. There's Mr. Cliff Common, a dog breeder, and one of his dogs in this particular show is Princess Kelly. It was a poor shoot that day, and we're going to show you many better shoots to come in the next few minutes, but we want to show you that all brant shooting was not easy. There's a lot of work to it, and sometimes a lot of back-breaking work, as you'll see when we take the boat and remove it down on the tidal flats. You notice the tide has gone way down now, and we sometimes have to tow a boat as much as a half a mile over the mud flats. And we indicate here that that was not very good on this particular shoot, and the dog agrees with us. Here you see some of the back-breaking work is involved for the privilege of shooting brant, taking your boats back down again. A lot of other places there are permanent brant pits established, and you will see them in a very, very few seconds. And there you see it, loading it out, a very unsuccessful shoot for the first one anyway. We want to start out poor and show you eventually one of the best brant shoots in North America. While we've got a few seconds here break, I would like to remind you all of the Sportsman 12 Crestliner boat contest that we've got running right now. Here's a picture of it here that we're going to show you in a few seconds. And there you see the size of the boat. We had one the other day on the show. Remember, we caught the 2 12-pound salmon. And all you have to do to win this, and we'd like to remind all our listeners and viewers everywhere that there are 15 of these boats, one for each of the television stations that carry Tides and Trails. And all you have to do to win it is just put your name and address on the back of a Sportsman cigarette package. And here's the question once again: where has Tides and Trails been outside of Canada in 1963? Put that answer to the station you're now watching, and because of the switchboard girls and the contest people getting all these stacks of mail, we suggest and we hope that you will put boat contest on the outside of Canada in 1963, and we hope that you win the Sportsman 12 Crestliner boat. So let's all have a good go at this one, and best of luck to each and every one of you in every one of the 15 areas where Tides and Trails is shown. There are 15 boats. You've all got equal chance to win one of them for yourself. Now back to brant shooting, this time in Boundary Bay, very close to the city of Vancouver. You see here what is viewed. Uncle Stumpy is still a little cold and miserable towards the end of February. The Woods boys here have been established in this brant pit for many years with their father. And again, this is a permanent situation. There's not too much work involved here. The brant pits are so many feet apart, so many yards apart. There's Russell Young, who was shooting with us on that particular day, adjusting the decoys because of logs that come through, drifting in the tide and so on. And he has to realign them and reposition a lot of the decoys. Only 50 decoys are allowed in this particular shooting area because it's so close to the main center of population in Vancouver. The brant pit is dug out of sand and right down to low tide mark, and tunnels are dug back to a tent where the boys camp out. And this is the view through the 2 logs that you see of your brant decoys. This is the brant hunter's view through those 2 top logs, and it's much like goose shooting on the prairies. There's a flock of brant coming in. Remember that the black brant is a goose. It's one of the smallest geese in North America, and it reacts much like a Canada. It comes to the call and comes into feed, and also to gravel in certain places. They must have gravel and feed. If you can find an area on the Pacific coast that has eelgrass and gravel, you've got a good brant location. Seems that we didn't do too well on that particular shoot. They fly much like a goose, a little bounce in their wings. Here comes a flock very, very close and right over the decoys. If you watch carefully, you'll see us drop 2 birds out of this flock. There goes one down, the other one just outside your screen. Russell Young drops one here too. A very fine trap shot. Russ is known all over North America, and a very fine sportsman as well. First time I've ever seen a pointer go out and act as a retriever, and did a very, very fine job too. This type of Brant shooting is dying off now. The Boundary Bay area is fast becoming industrialized, and it won't be too many more years before the shooting will all be over in this particular area. There's always the east coast of Vancouver Island, where we're going to show you next, which has the largest percentage of Brant by population for the number of miles of beach to be hunted. Give you a good close look at a black Brant here. This is Uncle Stumbly's first and only black Brant. The comparative size to a Canada goose is about a quarter to a half as large. They average between 3 and 5 pounds. Most of them going closer to 3, much like about the size of a big mallard. But they are a goose. They're not a duck. A little tiny bill on them, and they feed exclusively on this eelgrass, and that is where you hunt them, in the eelgrass beds, on the dropping tide. But the only bird that can be hunted into the month of March. There you see us inspecting our day's bag. Well, that is a little bit better shoot, but you're going to see in the next film one of the most fantastic Brant shoots that I've ever had the privilege to be on. But now,
it's Tides and Trails Tall Tales Trophy time.
and this particular tall tale comes from Inglis, Manitoba, actually sent into television station CKOS in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and it comes from a lady, Mrs. Laureen Kopetsky. And congratulations to you, Mrs. Kopetsky. We'll tell you about your winnings in a very few seconds. First of all, here is her tall tale. Dear Uncle Stumbly, when I heard of your cameraman losing his camera a year ago, it made me recall an incident which happened to my husband and I. We were fishing at Duck Bay for over 3 hours for our very first time. We had taken along our camera as we had heard the fish were very, very large, and we wanted to get a picture of our catch before we filleted them. The first morning we were out, we landed a 20-pound quotation marks jack, which is a northern pike. My husband grabbed the camera and took a picture of this beauty. Didn't that fish in its anger leap out of my hand, squirmed around, and leapt back in the water, knocked the camera as well. So both the camera and the fish went back into the water. We thought that was the end of the camera forever. We were sorry, as we'd heard that other pictures of that film would have been liked by a lot of people watching. The following year, we returned to Duck Bay. The first morning we were out, what did my husband catch but a very large, overstuffed perch? When we returned to our cabin, my husband began to fillet his catch, and lo and behold, what did he find but our camera and all the developed film of that wonderful 20-pound northern pike. We came to this conclusion. The fish are not only big at Duck Bay, but are very, very intelligent. Well, to you, Mrs. Kopetsky, in Manitoba, we're going to send, of course, our carton of Sportsman cigarettes, our 20-pound Pacific Coast spring salmon, and the scroll entitling you to prevaricate forever. For the rest of you who have not entered the Tall Tales contest as yet, simply mail your idea of a tall story to the television station you're now viewing, and you're eligible to win the carton of Sportsman, the 20-pound salmon, and the scroll entitling you to prevarication. Now, back to Brant hunting at Qualicum Beach on the east coast of Vancouver Island. This is a very populated area. It's a great summer area, as a matter of fact, Qualicum Beach, and it's easily reached by ferry from Vancouver to Nanaimo and then 27 miles north up a very fine highway. Lots of accommodation in the area, and again the season for the Brant here is the last week in February and the first 2 or 3 days in March. And this gentleman that you see before you now is Mr. Alec Norman of Qualicum, and has been Brant hunting for over 40 years. He's regarded as one of the professionals in the trade and has handmade all his own decoys. His dog Dash is an excellent retriever, and he's trained his sons very, very well in the art of Brant hunting. Alec has been at it, as I say, for many, many years. Dash looks a bit unconcerned here. While all the work is being done, there's Alec's son Bill helping to set the decoys, long strings, and large anchors have to be used in the open Pacific here in the Gulf because the tide is quite strong. And if you're having 20 to 50 decoys on a string, you've certainly got to have a large anchor to hold them against some of the surging waves as the tide drops. Here again we're on a gravel spit, and the birds are primarily coming in for gravel and not for feed. Way out in the low tide, eelgrass grows. It's difficult to hunt the brant way out there as you're very exposed. If you dug pits, they would be filled in by each tide. There you see Dash all upset, still no brant appearing. There's Uncle Stumbly dragging his string of brant decoys along and having wet waders, finding it a little bit uncomfortable in the cold North Pacific. When the sun comes out, it's quite pleasant. The temperature sometimes goes up as high as 50 degrees at this time of year, and it's well worth the effort for brant shooting. Following the tide out, the boys place the decoys further and further out on the spit. There's Mr. Wilf Dickinson having a sportsman here before settling down in behind the boat which they use for a pit. In this particular case, Wilf has been brant shooting as a partner of Alec Norman's now for, again, almost 40 years. And if there's anything that these two boys, Alec and Wilf, don't know about brant shooting, I don't think they've written the book yet. So we certainly thank them for providing the shoot for us, and you're going to see some very wonderful shooting and pictures of brant and how they behave in this sequence. There's young Bill Norman scanning the sea for brant. That's not a brant there, that is a scoter, and not game at this time of year, not in season. The only bird in season is the black brant. Wilf scanning the sky again. They're not even using a pit here. They just get behind an old boat and decoy the birds right into them. They're excellent at setting these decoys so that they can get the birds very, very close. Here's three of them coming in now. One of them dropped, the second one dropped, and the third one comes back again, and he is dropped also. Down he goes. It's quite a trick, much as it is Canada goose hunting, to get the birds in close to begin with, and then you must have somebody in command. You must have a shoot captain. There's Mr. Frank Greenfield smoking a sportsman. Frank has been a conservation officer, as we call him now, but he would prefer to be called a game warden. In the Nanaimo Qualicum area, he's been in the BC Fish and Game branch for many, many years. He's one of the originals, and we certainly welcome him to Tides and Trails for the first time. He's inspecting the weight of the brant, just checking them all, everyone that's shot on the beach. There's Mr. Ray Hayward going out in a boat to retrieve a cripple. They have the two dogs, of course, but when some of the cripples get farther out, the use of a boat is very, very necessary to make sure that no game or no birds are wasted under any circumstances. And this dog, Dash, is just an amazing retriever. He has one particular habit, however, if you'll watch closely now. He drops the bird right at the shore, and that's it. He won't go another step. But he's been brant hunting as long as he's been alive, too. Very tasty bird. You notice that they're not unlike the coloring of the Canada goose. They're sort of a very far-off cousin of the Canada, but very much smaller, and they never fly over land. They're a true sea goose. Boys having a little pause with not too much action. Always with, they have at least one member of the group scanning the open sea there out to the islands to make sure that there's no brant poaching. Sometimes the brant fly very, very low. There's Pat Fraser in the toque, and also scanning the sky here. Pat has just come back off an American aircraft carrier, and he's been he's raised in Canada but spent a stint in the American Navy. Studied photography. An excellent shot and a true sportsman. Down comes one, two, and I think they got out goes Dash for the double retrieve. Tried to pick up two at once, but found them just a bit too large for his mouth, so he's going to make two swings at it. Out he goes again without even a command for the second bird. And that takes a lot of training. For those of you who have retrieving dogs know that they love hunting just as much as you do. Alec picks up the bag there, pats his dog, sends him out again. There's another down one way out there. Pat having a look for more birds coming in at the time. Sometimes while the dog is out retrieving, another flock will be on the way in. Certainly was a wonderful shoot. A lot of studies being done on the black brant by the Federal Wildlife Service and how they breed and where they summer. Some of them go very, very far south. Weimaraner there as well, owned by Ray. Bill Norman again looking out to sea. Nobody ever takes their eyes off that salt water for very long. There's a flock of birds again, lesser scaup or bluebills, very plentiful at this time of year, but not in season. Dash are very disgusted now. Alex scanning the. Here's a flock of brant coming in right over the decoys. One of them swung in close enough. Down it came. The boys use either number 2 or number 4 shot, and usually in the magnum sizes, to make sure of clean kills as much as possible. But if your shoot captain is skillful enough, you can decoy the birds in so close that most of them have got their feet down before you stand up to shoot, and then they're flaring away from you at the time, much like a good goose hunt captain on the prairies. And Bill picked up that one. Comes the hunter's dream. You notice how the brant fly much like a Canada goose. The wing beat is almost identical, but much faster. They bounce in the air. 2 clean shots. They came to another brant pit just about 100 yards down the beach. Another pair swinging in right over the decoys. Oh, look how close they come. The right word, bang, bang, down they come. They could have been shot perhaps a few seconds earlier, but they were allowing cameraman Bill time to get a really good picture of the behavior of the brant as they come right into the decoys. Dash and Ray there having had a little bit of a sporting session. Alec scanning the sky for another big flock coming in. Down 2, 3. Excellent shooting and good sport. Some of these decoys are made out of latex, some are made out of wood. The latex ones have a tendency to bob and weave too much when the wind is quite active. Another pair stooling around, being watched by Pat. Single, double here coming right in. And flaring off. They didn't like something. You have to remain absolutely still, much as you would for duck shooting or goose hunting. Swung right in over the other pit and weren't shot at. There's a lot of sportsmanship goes on here in this, between the pits. And here we have Don McCochran, the game biologist of the district, weighing them once again and sexing them just to make a complete check on how many brant are shot and the size they grow to and the percentage of males to females. And if there's ever too much of a kill, of course, the season would be limited. Getting back to this sportsmanship between the pits, a lot of the boys let a flock of brant go by so that another pit will get a shoot. and it's a very good thing to see and participate in. Whenever they come right in over your decoys, well, naturally, they're your birds, but sometimes they swing just a bit outside your set, and it's the sporting thing to do to let them try to swing for the other set, which may be only 100 yards down the beach. Here they come again. Not quite close enough. Notice how they bounce when they fly. Pat having a shot at a cripple, but he'll send the dog out for it if it's close enough, and if not, he'll take the boat, which they did. None of the birds were wasted. As I say, they're one of the finest table birds in North America. This lad, Pat Fraser, here is left after this trip to go cougar hunting, mountain lion hunting in the Rockies with his friend and relation, who is one of the conservation officers for the BC Fish and Game Branch. Piling up a nice bag of Brant there. Another bird, the loner swinging over. Right in. Just swung on the outside of the set. Again, it's the sporting thing to do to wait until you have a sure shot. Don't take a crippling shot that will send them out 5 miles away before they fold up. Qualicum area has long been known to be famous for Brant. There's another good area on southern Vancouver Island near the town of Sydney, which is easily reached by the government ferries as well. Anywhere you have one of these exposed gravel spits is where the Brant come to. They never fly over land. Plenty of Brant action on this day. I'd like to thank Alec and Wilf once again, Alec Norman and Wilf Dickinson, for putting on this shoot, and the Qualicum Fish and Game Organization, which sponsor sportsmanship all over Vancouver Island. Here's a lovely shot of Brant coming right into the decoys. They don't take them every time. Sometimes it's just a pleasure to be able to call them and come right in. Right into the other pit, and a clean kill. And of course, the inevitable work of dragging all the decoys home, piling them up for another season. This was the last day of the Brant season. Well, there, ladies and gentlemen, you see Brant hunting in 3 different areas on the Pacific Coast. Don't forget the Crestliner Sportsman 12 contest. Please put boat contest on the outside of your mail. Where has Tides and Trails been outside of Canada in 1963? Mail it to the television station you're now viewing. Be a true sportsman, smoke Sportsman cigarettes, and Ted Peck once again saying tight lines and straight shooting.
Sportsman Cigarette, with the tobacco that's too good to filter, has brought you Tides and Trails. Join Ted Peck next week at the same time. Tides and Trails was produced for Sportsman Cigarette by CHAN-TV Vancouver.